This video is another piece of asynchronous content that will link up to the September 11th class. And it's one of the sort of last creation of data tutorials that we'll do that I think is important. Won't be as long as the others. And it's going to review a concept that's called georeferencing. And the idea behind georeferencing is, we just learned about how we draw vector-based objects. So we draw points and lines and polygons. But there's numerous times when you may find a PNG or a JPEG or a PDF that's a map of something. Maybe an old historic map or a new map that someone sort of created. And you know where it should be in the world, right? But it's just a picture, so you can't really look at it in ArcGIS or ArcPro because it's a PNG. It has no geographic bearing. It doesn't know where it's supposed to be. It's a piece of paper. It's not sort of a piece of formatted data like a shapefile. But that's a cool part of the tool georeferencing, is it allows you to actually take an image and put it where it's supposed to be in the world, or as close as you think you can. And it's a sweet tool with a lot of depth to it. We'll cover it sort of somewhat superficially right now, just showing you the basics. But it's another one of those that there's content on the YouTube channel that'll explore it further. And if you're one of those enterprising students that likes it and want to really dive into the nuances, by all means, please do, and then I'll help you. But I want to make sure you have it at your disposal. This idea of how you take something that is paper-based, right, picture-based, not actually linked to where it's supposed to be in the world, but put it somewhere on a map so that perhaps you can trace over it or you can sort of overlay it with other data that you have. So in order to do this, I'm going to get away from Philly. I'm actually create a whole new map. Go to New Map and create a new world. So boom, I'm gone. I back out into sort of the open space here. I no longer have the coordinate system of Philadelphia. Now I've got the Mercator coordinate system. I could click on this map and select properties. There I have. I got my world geographic 1984 Mercator. Bing, bada, boom. Know where I am. So open the Geo Reference folder if you're choosing to follow along, and you can drag in the African countries. Right, and so now we're oriented with this is our coordinate system. We've moved in. We've got a shape file of sort of different countries within Africa. And the next thing I want you to drag in, and we're eventually going to go to don't open, but if you're a horror movie or a 4-year-old, you're probably already opened that and push the red button. Yeah. Briefly in these videos, I'll have to pause and remember anecdotes of my son. He's been obsessed for years. He's 4 now, but when he was like 2 to 3, I don't know if you guys have kids, he has that book called Don't Push the Button, which is just a monster named Larry, who effectively just tempts you not to push the button on each page, and it drives children wild. So, recommendation for any of those that do have a 6-month-old and are looking for a way to occupy a child that's not television. But here we go. Colonial Africa, drag it in. What this is it's a map, right? Unknown coordinate system. I don't know where I'm supposed to be at the world, so what am I going to do? I'm just going to make myself like a giant map and put myself somewhere in the world. So this was a PNG I'd taken from somewhere that just shows the colonial partition of Africa. For those who don't know this history, though I imagine probably most do, in the class, the manner in which Europe has treated Africa has never really been good. Been horrific from the start of slavery with Portugal into the transatlantic slave trade, and even into today. But the horrors continued in the late 1800s and early 1900s when they quite literally met in Belgium and had a conference about how they would divide up the land in a country. And France would take X, and Great Britain would take Y, and Belgium would take Z. And this is truly the reason you see the language differentiation in Africa today. And this was sort of the map that the leaders in Europe at that time had agreed upon. And what I want to do is it could be a fun exercise if you had a map like this to overlay it over this sort of map of countries, and then you'd be able to sort of identify maybe how many people speak a given language, right? If this map told you the population in Benin or the Democratic Republic of Congo or South Africa, and you knew the language that they spoke because of the overlap with this map, you could theoretically figure out how many or estimate how many people live in French-speaking areas or areas that speak English or so on and so forth. And so the way that you handle this, right, the way that we do it, and I'm only going to show a couple steps and then we'll go right to the don't open, is you come over to what's called imagery and select this thing here called Georeference. And a new toolbar is going to pop up here called the Geo Reference Toolbar. So the first thing I like to do maybe is I'll zoom in and I'll say fit to display. It's just maybe a good way to shrink it. All right, so now it's a little bit smaller and I've got it. And really what I can do here is let's take away auto apply and you just sort of set points, right? You do these things called adding control points. And what you're trying to do is you're moving from the image to where you want to align it, right? And so you're just trying to find these anchor points, right? So you could put an anchor there. You can put sort of an anchor here. And, the only key importance when you're learning a tool like this is you want to spread out the anchors as evenly as possible. So I'm not going to bore you with this video of literally going through each of them. I'll just pick like 5 random ones and then I'll do the auto adjust so we can see how poorly it looks, and then I'll bring in a better version that actually took sort of time and effort to use some of the other tools a little bit more. But the purpose of this, right, is I'm contorting the image in a way so that it tries to align as best as possible with the actual shapefile on the map. And I could come up here and I would hit apply. And there we go, right? It did the best that it could. And I'm not going to save the image because I want you guys to be able to do it too. But that's how something like this would work. And now I've taken sort of a picture and I've put it here. And now I can compare them and I can sort of trace the two. And you would save it here if you want, and that would sort of keep it and it would be good. But if I don't want to, I can close the georeference. Yes, I want to continue. We'll go back to where it's supposed to be, or rather would if I deleted it. Yep. And it's gone. And so if you put time and effort into it, right, you can result in something like the don't open, where you can drag it in, and it is now built in with a projection, right? And before I dragged this thing in, and, I had to georeference it. But once you save the file, it's almost like it attaches an appendix to the image, which tells it, hey, I live here. This is where I'm supposed to go. This is where I'm supposed to align. So it's just a really neat, nifty trick I found for when you want to take an image layer and align it sort of with the world for tracing or for analytic or even visual purposes.